age of MMORPGs, I used to play and love a game called Anarchy Online. It's essentially a science fantasy EverQuest clone, with nanobots instead of magic, cybernetic implants, and genetically modified ancestries that the developers insisted weren't just sci-fi elves. There's a wonderful feeling those old MMOs had that's difficult to replicate. The atmosphere and vibes, a confusion about the mechanics and a sense of being lost in a vast new world, but knowing that eventually you'll figure it out, or at least meet people that can help. I was quite active in the community and ended up coordinating storylines and directing large-scale role-playing events. To GM that kind of event, you have to balance a carefully thought-out plan with letting the players be the stars of the story. The lessons I learned stayed with me when my partner introduced me to tabletop role-playing, and that's how I first got into tabletop games. As a storyline coordinator, I used to devour the lore, scouring item descriptions and NPC dialogue, reading supplementary articles, and even a novel set in the world. And now, reading this book, nearly 20 years later, in so many ways I'm transported back in time to that game I used to love. The futuristic world with a mythical past, the scrappy look, the fantasy tropes in a sci-fi skin, the dense lore, and even that same sense of being lost at first in a strange new world. Very few games have given me that feeling. It's not something you can easily capture, but Veil of the Void managed exactly that. The physical book is a print-on-demand hardback. The front cover nicely sets the tone. I enjoy how the title on the front is understated, low down in a glitchy typeface, but on the back it's bold, retro, and in your face. Inside, I found the layout a little tricky to read at times, but you'll find these colour-coded boxes of examples and suggestions to help with the rules. There's loads of art throughout the book in this scribbly digital style, often full character images. At the back, there's quite a large section that I think was added with the Reforged edition, an in-universe book of lore and enemy stat blocks. I love this section. There's something very Silmarillion about it. A singular creator weaving life into the world, into powerful deities with their own domains, and then into a first generation of elf-like mortals. And this is all told from the perspective of Philaday, an Alan leader who remembers being awoken. We learn about the divine powers, the fallen faces, and the realms of this multiverse before finding out about the current state of the galaxy, Ryaktan, and the factions and adversaries you can find there. Veil of the Void uses a somewhat unique D6 dice pool system that might seem familiar at first, but has some important distinctions. Essentially, when asked to roll a skill check, you create a pool of d6s based on the attribute governing that skill. A 5 or a 6 is a hit, and you need to meet a certain number of hits to succeed the check, depending on the difficulty. So far, so simple. But investing in these skills gives bonus dice to your pool, as well as numbers to add to already rolled dice, potentially turning a miss into a hit. And then at rank 7, you unlock a unique ability. Then there are auto hit and auto miss dice that can be added to a roll that are set at either 6 or 1. If you get 5 or more 1s or 2s, you get a critical fail, and 5 or more hits grants you a critical success. You also get bonus dice from things like determination, which works a bit like inspiration from other systems, and from various other situational modifiers as well. After everything is added up, it's theoretically possible to have a dice pool total of 21 d6s, so I guess all that dice hoarding will finally pay off. Combat and open play both essentially use the same system of skill checks. You're still rolling a dice pool against a difficulty number, using your skill with either weapons, dual wielding, or arcanting for magic attacks. I always enjoy mechanical consistency like that. Something else relatively unique about Veil of the Void is how your skill rank increases with use, as well as with class-based milestone leveling. So you'll also need to keep track of how many times you use that specific skill. Creating a character is a familiar process of first picking an ancestry, then a class, and finally applying stats and skill bonuses. There's some fun flavour in the ancestries, with Elan, humans, and Corian filling standard fantasy tropes. Then there are the nomadic celestials, vampire-like Dal Kindreth, the ghostly exiled, mechanical prototype, the plant-like Topican, and finally the Reapers, who seem to be interdimensional edgelords. There's a good variety of classes too. Most of the familiar archetypes are covered, with some techno-fantasy flavouring, like the Necromancer. You're encouraged to flavour all these classes and abilities in any way you like, and mixing and matching is quite easy as well. If your class doesn't grant you spells, for example, you can learn them by investing in the Arcanting skill. And whenever you gain a level, you can choose to take abilities from other classes. You also get to pick a few expertises at character creation, which are Veil of the Void's answer to feats, and that really helps the customization. I was a little unsure about some of the spellcasting mechanics, so I built a Topican smuggler called Sedge, who I imagined freelancing for one of the crime factions that caught my eye, the Enigma Consortium, who seek out ancient relics related to a creature they call the Old One. As you play, you'll transition between freeform roleplay and tactical grid-based combat. The combat isn't overly complex, so it's a smooth transition, and the story is completely open-ended and makes no assumption about the kind of adventures you'll have. It's completely up to you and your group how you want to enjoy your game. Veil of the Void wants you to homebrew and customize. There's quite a helpful guide in the GM section on creating items, ancestries, classes, NPCs, and adversaries. And the game expects GMs to get comfortable with creating content. There are a few official supplements as well on the website, like additional classes and a community-made armory of weapons. I believe the designers are hoping to release a Norse mythology-inspired expansion at some point too. Oh, and speaking of community, the game has a Discord server with quite a few people workshopping their homebrew creations together, which was really nice to see. My old MMO, Anarchy Online, had, and still has, a lot of jank. Confusing and sometimes contradictory systems. relics of old versions and counterintuitive mechanics. And that's another way I was reminded of it by Veil of the Void. It's clearly been in development for a long time. There's so much love poured into this book, but I found it difficult to pass sometimes. The order of information and counterintuitive wording made it tough for me to get into, and meant I didn't spend as much time with the game as I would have liked. A quick example: as a Topican, I have an ability that says, "Call forth the roots of the Mother Tree to grasp all adversaries in combat for 3 rounds." I wasn't sure what that meant mechanically, and assumed that it hindered the enemy's movement in some way. But when I checked the condition grasped, it says that the target loses their actions and reactions, which was not at all intuitive to me. I think the book would benefit from some more editing, checking the order and consistency of information, clarifying existing rules rather than adding explanations, and perhaps highlighting keywords. It's interesting that there's an extremely popular playstyle at the moment that I would call neo-trad. It's the kind of playstyle I learned in MMOs, and it's the one you see on big podcasts like Critical Role. And despite its popularity, it's sadly dominated by one single game. It's difficult for games like Veil of the Void to find a niche, but that's changing at the moment. Big names in that space are finally branching out from D&D, with Kobold Press's Tales of the Valiant, MCDM's Draw Steel, and Darrington Press's Daggerheart. And in that future, maybe games like Veil of the Void can finally find their niche. In the meantime, these reviews are about my personal experience with a game, and the joy I find in owning a physical book. I have to be honest though, I did struggle at first to understand the rules and intent of Veil of the Void. It's not a perfectly polished product, but if I wanted perfectly polished products, I wouldn't be seeking out these obscure corners of the community. To paraphrase a TV show I absolutely adore, there's beauty in imperfection. Or perhaps as the book puts it on page 188, it's okay to be broken. Instead of judging it against other games, I like to think about the intentions of a game in my conclusions, evaluating it on its own merits. It's okay to be broken is a good reflection of that intention. The game wants you to customize, to make a character however you like, and isn't too worried about whether you follow the rules, as long as you're having fun. And on the very last page is a picture of a group of player characters. The caption reads, "This is going to be fun." Thank you ever so much for watching. This is the first review of a non-solo game on this channel, and next fortnight I'll be looking at another. If you've voted on the poll for the next review, you'll know we have a Portal Fantasy game coming up, in the vein of Disney's Owl House or The Chronicles of Narnia. So please do subscribe for more looks at little indie games. And a special thank you to the people who supported the channel through Ko-fi this month. I am so genuinely touched and grateful. Thank you. And until next time, happy adventures.